So I'm going to start with a brief LMS history of Yale so that you have a sense of where we're coming from, for Canvas. We started off as a Sakai school in 2005. So we've had Sakai for quite a long time. In fall of 2015, we started piloting Canvas. And we had about 50 people in the fall of 2015, 50 courses, about 100 courses in the spring. And by the end of that transition, we decided, yes, we're going to be transitioning from Sakai to Canvas. And so just this past year, ending spring in 2017, we were finishing our dual year, if you will, preparing courses in both Sakai and in Canvas, letting our faculty choose. By the spring, we had about 55% of our community on board, so we did pretty well in our first year, but we still have 45% to go for this fall, so we're still very much in the middle of our transition. So a little of the history of why we're here today and investigating the Canvas API. When we were hosting or supporting Canvas, Classes V2 or Sakai, we had a developer at the time, Cheryl, who was developing some Perl scripts for us to do a lot of the functionality that the support team needed. And really the critical component was to bring common functionality into the hands of the support team. We have a wide variety of buckets and functional categories that her scripts were covering, everything from membership and roles, how many people have the shopper role in a certain course at any given time. We did develop a lot of custom roles when we were at Yale, all the way down to common questions that people would ask us as a support team from a student. What assignments have I submitted successfully and have they gone through? We didn't have to worry about all of these categories going into Canvas, so we were able to sort of focus on some of the other issues. But when I started looking at the analytics out of the box, looking at tool usage, for example, from this past spring, our biggest categories were general and other. And that wasn't getting us very far in understanding how people were using Canvas. Another challenge we have, and I think this is very common amongst Canvas schools, is that we have lots of sub-accounts. And we want to actually understand our reporting at any one of these levels. But if you're doing that in Canvas, you have to go into the analytics of every sub-account, and so it's very hard to get that rolled-up view or that deep dive view. It's all there, but it's all a lot of clicks away. So all of this brought me to figuring out what are our initial needs, to figuring out what new scripts might we need for going into Canvas. So our first one is really to understand a security audit. We have, and for Sakai schools out there, a lot of delegated access, a lot of sub-account admins in our environment. We need to provide a report for security audits of who has those roles and in what schools. We also create a lot of local accounts in Canvas. We are using 2 authentication methods, NetID for CAS and also local accounts. But if we have an entire course with 500, we have some MOOCs in our Canvas, 500 local accounts that need to be created, we're not wanting to make those by hand. And we also don't necessarily want 500 invitations going out. So how to manage that? This may be very specific to Yale, but we also need to know about syllabus availability. This is very important for our shopping period and for our Yale College departments. They want to be able to encourage their faculty to post syllabi, but we don't want to be having them pester faculty who have already done it. So how to let them know who those folks are. We're coming off of a transition year, so this makes sense, but this makes sense going forward as well, as we want to encourage our support around Canvas. So adoption rates by department, by school, what are they using? That brings us into tool usage and external apps. We want to know what tools are being used, by which department, how often. External apps is also another one that we want to be able to report on. And then finally, bringing this all into the convenience of the support team in the CTL, not needing to go back to ITS to ask a lot of these questions. And I'm realizing I'm dropping letters, so if people don't know, CTL, Center for Teaching and Learning, ITS, Information Technology Services. So this brings me to introducing my 2 colleagues here. And I mentioned earlier we had Cheryl, for the developer at the time, who was developing Cheryl's tools. Alina is here today, and I'm going to be introducing, through them, Alina's tools.
All right, so I'm just going to describe a little bit more in depth our needs, and then Alina will talk about how she solved those needs for us with her Alinas Tools. So our first need is, as Pilar mentioned, there's a change in policy at Yale that now requires us to do a quarterly audit of everyone who has admin level access in Canvas. So we need to be able to determine and send to each department and school has a point person, And we want to give them a list of people from their department or their school that have admin access so that they can say, oh yes, all these people are fine, but this person needs to be removed. So this is all for making sure that those people who have admin level access should still have access. But part of the problem is, as Pilar was just mentioning, we have a bunch of different sub-accounts. So we have a hierarchy of the overall Yale institution, then we have our school level. Within school, there's department, and then subject. And we do provide admin level access at each point within that hierarchy. So we needed a way to be able to pull all of the users who have admin level access at all points within that hierarchy.
So that brings us to the elevated access report within Alinas Tools. As you can, let's see if I can use the pointer. Yeah, there we go. All right, so you can pull the person's name and info for each person that has access to any given sub-account. It's really small here, so I don't know if anybody in the back can actually read this, but it tells you what sub-account they're in, what parent sub-account they're in, and it also tells you, so this actually hits our LDAP server, so it pulls info from our directory and tells us what their role is and what organization they're in, so that Timberley's team can contact the organization and verify that that administrator still needs that elevated access. And that happens on a quarterly basis for us, so it's really nice to not have to look up, how many people do we have with elevated access? Like
Hundreds.
yeah, a lot of people, one by one, so this made it a lot easier to go through.
And the next need is related to requiring having guest accounts in our system, or Canvas local accounts. So at Yale, we have two types of users. We have official Yale users who get essentially authenticated, we call them net IDs, and that gives them access to a bunch of systems at Yale, one of which is Canvas. But then we have a lot of users who are not official Yale users. They might be from another school, or they might be high school students that are taking a course, or they might be part of a MOOC. And these users do not get an official Yale net ID. So we have to create local accounts for them in Canvas. So you might be thinking, why wouldn't you just do a sys import of these users? The problem is, because we have these two different authentication types, we cannot have our local accounts have one of the, in Canvas, it's a sys-ID number, the Canvas sys-ID number. These accounts must not have that. And the sys import tool requires that field, so we can no longer do the sys import. Now, luckily, we have some great developers who did create a script that will use the Canvas API and create these things, but there was no front end for it. So when we got requests for 500 local accounts, we would have to take that request and then shift that request over to our ITS developers, who could then run the script and create them. So our support team really became a middleman, and that basically just made it take a lot longer for these users to get their accounts. So we wanted to have something that our support team would be able to run.
All right, so through Leanness Tools, hopefully you guys can hear me, we upload, Timberley and her team can upload a formatted CSV with the user names, whatever password they wanted to give them, and an email address. These are my dogs and my cats' email addresses right here. They upload it themselves, and voila, they get results, which gives all of the people that have ever been added, what time they were attempted to be added at, and then here the status. So this tells you whether they were actually added to the system or if their account already existed. So this makes it really easy, just puts this tool in the hands of the admin support staff so that there's no extra step to be able to do what we need to do.
And the next need relates to Yale's shopping period. For those of you who don't have something similar, shopping period is a period of about the first 2 full weeks of classes where students are allowed to shop courses or unofficially register for courses. They are able to browse through all course syllabi, and they can pick courses that they want to kind of try out. And when they unofficially register for or shop a course, they are allowed to go to the face-to-face meeting sessions and actually test out the course. And they are also enrolled in the Canvas course site with the role of shopper, which is just a role that's based off of the student role. So in order for shopping period to work, the students need to be able to browse syllabi. So we have two main issues that we needed to be solved for this. First is we have an online course information system, which is where the students go to browse these syllabi. And that system harvests the URLs from Canvas that point directly to the syllabus tool within those course sites. So in order for that to work, the course site in Canvas must be published, and there must be a syllabus within the syllabus tool. So we needed a way to be able to track and see what courses are being published, which ones aren't, and which ones have syllabus posted in the correct syllabus tool or not. So that's phase one. We need to track that so that we can give departments and the registrars information about what is and isn't available to students so that they can make proper decisions during shopping period. And the second is when, as I mentioned, when a student is shopping a course, they are enrolled in the course site with the role of shopper. If they decide that they're going to officially take that course, their role is automatically transferred over from shopper over to student. And if they decide they're going to drop the course, their shopper enrollment is just removed. So we wanted a way to be able to track how many students are still in our system that have not officially registered for something, and that we can also target messages to those people.
Right, so there is a tool called the Basic Info and Fill by Report in Alinas Tools. And for a given subaccount and term, you can see what the course status is, how many shoppers are still enrolled in the course, which I think none right now, but, and whether the syllabus has been published or not. So we can use this logic to figure out who needs to be contacted to get their syllabus and course up and running so students can take advantage of the system.
The next need is something that's been really critical as we've been transitioning to Canvas. We basically, as Pilar mentioned, we created all course sites in our old system, Sakai, and in Canvas for this past year. And we allowed instructors to just go into whichever system they wanted, and they could publish their course in whichever system they chose to use. So we wanted a way to be able to identify in Canvas whose courses have not been published, so that we can reach out to those instructors or those departments and be able to say, hey, would you like us to give you a custom workshop for your department? Would it help if we just gave a presentation about what to expect with the transition and when things are happening? And we just want to be able to target those people and make sure that they have all the resources they need to be successful in transferring over to the new system.
So, through Alinas Tools, you can pull a whole lot of tables, which you can download as CSVs, or there's other options to be able to visualize this data in Alinas Tools. So this one, for example, this is our available courses by school in spring 2017. This only represents 55% of all courses at Yale because we're still transitioning, but you can get an idea of what percentage of Yale College is using like 50% of the courses. This tells you the top 5 schools, and it's really great to be able to see published courses by your school level subaccount. This is another example. This we broke down into Yale College departments themselves, so we did kind of a deeper dive. And it's really hard to see from the back, but each of these bars represents a college department. So like, American Studies, Anthropology, Chemistry. On the actual side, if you hover over the bar, it pops up what department it is. You can actually use this. And this tells you your adoption rate. So this is what percentage of courses in this department are using Canvas instead of our old system, or nothing at all, rather. So this is a really great way to visualize data by department level, sub-accounts. You can really drill down as far down as you want into any sub-account. This specific one's a great way to monitor adoption rates as well. And then we also do snapshots of data over time. So during the regular semester, we do about once a month. And then during shopping period and other important times, we do it more often, like maybe once a week or so. So you can really see the change in time, and you can see trends over, in here this is still course availability, but you can see trends in terms of tool usage as well. I'm going to show you a little bit later. So each of these lines here is a school at Yale, so we have public health, architecture, et cetera. That one is Yale College because that's a very steep up curve, which is great. As Pilar said, we've only been a Canvas school for 2 years, so this only represents 4 semesters here, but it's going to keep going up that way. So, yeah. And yeah, it's really just great to be able to see the service adoption over time.
And the next need, I'm sure will expand, but our first real need in terms of data-driven decision-making is we wanted to look at tool usage within Canvas, both the inherent Canvas tools as well as the LTIs that have been plugged in. So we wanted to be able to see, for instance, in Canvas, are our faculty using the modules tool? If they're not, do we have enough documentation? Should we create workshops about how to use modules and pages and things? We wanted to be able to decide, how to move forward and get our community using tools, but it's helpful to know what they are and are not using. And then we also wanted to be able to look at LTI tool usage. We wanted to see what our faculty are plugging in their course sites, not only to just see what they're using, but also make sure that they're adhering to Yale policies and FERPA guidelines and things like that. But we also wanted to be able to see in terms of maybe we purchased a license for something and nobody's using it. Should we continue to fund that particular tool if no one is using it? Or maybe we can identify tools that are being used and individual pockets are paying for their own license. Should we get an enterprise-wide license so that more people can use the tool? So it would be really helpful for us to see all sorts of reports based on not just our overall school usage, but by department and by school as well.
All right, so the giant tool usage report is what I call it because it contains everything you can pull out of the API. I'm not going to read it all because it's ridiculous, and you guys can see take a picture of the slide, but we have things like course details. We count each of these roles. A bunch of these are custom for Yale. And then we count the usage of the Canvas native tools. And there are certain things like announcements and discussion topics and responses. We count each one of those as well. And the file quota used, all of that and syllabus, like we mentioned before. And then we also see if people are using, or courses are using, LTIs so that we can see, as Tim really said, do we need to purchase enterprise licenses? Do we need to offer more training? So this is really, I was going to actually do a screenshot to see kind of scroll horizontally through this whole thing, but it's making people dizzy. So I didn't. So I listed it like this instead. But it is really a giant tool usage report. And not extremely helpful that way, but we're working more on visualizing that data and being able to switch between terms and subaccounts really easily. And that really just makes this data come to life and be able to pull a lot more value out of it.
And the last need is, as Pilar mentioned, we wanted it to be convenient for our support staff. We didn't want to have to pass things along to the ITS group and have developers run scripts on our behalf. We didn't want to have to make our service team have to look in different places to find things. We really wanted everything to be all together in one place so it's easier for our team to use these tools.
So we created a dashboard overview of Alinas Tools. And I created this logo all by myself. I'm really proud of it right there. This gives you an overview of the courses published, the total courses, active users. That's that pie chart I showed before, and the line graph, and that's the bar graph I showed you guys earlier. All in one place, so you can get a really quick overview. And then also on the left-hand side over here, we have a number of different reports you can run. And basically, everything here leverages the Canvas API. I created a whole bunch of customized reports, which were exactly what support staff asked for. I worked really closely with them. I actually used to be a support person myself for Canvas, so I really came from it in that angle and tried to make it easier to use and make everybody else's life easier to use as well. So some examples of reports that are available. There's that big tool report, as I mentioned before. Because that tool is so big, that tool report is so big, I also chunked it into smaller things so that people can run something, just the basic info, just the amount of roles in each course, and et cetera. That makes it run a lot faster. You can also go back in history and see every single report you've ever run. I also have a number of user reports, like the elevated access users report, as I mentioned before, and also to see shoppers and local users. And I have LTI reports as well. So that lets you see all LTIs in a given subaccount. And also, if you pick an LTI, it tells you which subaccounts that LTI is installed on. So it goes the one way and then the other way. And the other thing we do is access to previously run reports from Canvas. So if you're a Canvas admin person, if you go into the settings and then reports, you can pull these reports, you can configure them for like specific terms, each of them are different, or specific tools, and it emails you to let you know when it's ready to download. And you can download it by clicking the little cloud, down button cloud thing. The problem is it only saves the last one you've ever configured, which is kind of a problem if you want to ever go back and see things. So there's actually a way to get a view of every report that's ever been run. And you can go back in history. This specific one, the LTI report, doesn't have a whole lot of configuration to do with it. But for other ones, I also do, it tells you the settings, whatever configurations you chose there. So I think that was it about the different needs that we had. I'm going to talk a little bit about the technical details about this. So this is hosted on Ruby on Rails, as Canvas is as well. And Alinas Tools, the app is hosted on Heroku, which is a really quick and easy way to get an app running. I used a whole bunch of really useful gems and tools if you're interested in any little part of this. I am also going to make all of the code available on GitHub for you guys to download. You'd need a developer, though, to customize it for your school for sure, because there's a whole lot of stuff that we had to do specific for Canvas for our school. But you're welcome for your developer to use it. And so some useful gems and tools. We have the Canvas API, which is awesome, and also the Open API I've been using to be able to get a really quick, make sure that my queries are correct and I can see right away the JSON, which is fabulous. I also use, Heroku has built-in scheduler capabilities, so that way I can have different tasks run nightly or weekly or monthly, and I don't even have to think about running them. We also have, I've been using the Diffie gem, which lets me see between times that the elevated access report has been run, who's been added or removed, to make their lives easier. I use jQuery table sorter so that you can click on every column heading and sort by ascending or descending. I don't think I mentioned it here, but I also have a jQuery tool to be able to download the whole page as a CSV, so you can pull it into Excel or whatever if you prefer working with that. I use our net LDAP talks to Yale's LDAP server to be able to pull directory info. Our devise gem I use to manage users, and it also hashes and keeps really secure the Canvas access tokens, which we need to put into the app to be able to actually talk to Canvas. So it's really important to keep that stuff secure. I use Bootstrap and Dressed for UI components and stuff. And then Tableau I'm using for data visualization for now, but we're going to be going more into native Ruby tools and JavaScript to be able to do more visualization. And then again, I'm going to be making the code available on GitHub as soon as it's all clean and pretty. So if you guys are interested in that, I'm going to leave my cards up here. And please grab one and email me and let me know that you'd like a link to it. And that's it, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, excellent.
For people to access the dashboard, do they have to go into Canvas to see that?
I don't think this. So, okay, so no, it's its own website. So mine is actually alinastools.heroku.com, but if you had it wherever you had hosted it, you'd be able to go to that site. So it's totally outside of Canvas.
Is the data actually real time? So, is there any latency in the data?
So you have a choice. You can either view previously run things, or you can run it right away. Obviously, the benefit is that if you run it right away, you get real live data right straight through the API. The problem is that it takes a long time for larger subaccounts and terms. So it's kind of a choice whether you need it right away or you're willing to wait.
Awesome. But real time as in the same day.
Oh yeah.
API grab.
Yeah, I mean, it could take if we do a whole Yale College, it could take an hour or two to run all of the tools, but so that's why I chunked it up into smaller bits, so it's faster. Yep, over here. Pass it around.
Hi. We're in the same kind of dual year right now. And one of the questions we kept kicking around is, should we publish everything in both sites and let the faculty choose which one they're going to use by which one they make available or turn on? Do you allow people to use both? In our case, I'll just let you know, right now we don't. Like, so if you publish one, it shuts the other one down. Have you come in contact with that?
So last year, when we had both environments as an option, we did not proactively prevent somebody from using Sakai if they've chosen Canvas. In part, the reason we did that was because we were still closing some functional gaps between Sakai and Canvas, and so if there was a tool that was critical to their teaching, but they really wanted to use Canvas, we had ways of iframing in the tools from Sakai into Canvas for that year, and so in that way you had to publish in both places. We didn't find a lot of people did that, though, so I think there was not a lot of dual usage, and I'll look to nodding heads to my side to make sure I said that correctly. But this year, Canvas is the only option. So we didn't even create sites in Sakai. So we had a year of option and then a year of pulling the Band-Aid off, and there's no choice.
I had a question about your guest account process. Are you folks using LDAP?
No, we're not.
Okay. So the guest accounts don't reside in the same place as your students?
So the guest accounts that we're creating, so account creation at Yale I won't try to go down that path too far, but unfortunately the way we have it right now is that we have to create the local accounts within Canvas for anybody who doesn't have an official Yale account. And so it would be the same as plus user from within the admin dashboard. We just wanted to be able to do them in batch and to avoid the invitations that get sent out when those accounts are created. So there are some downsides, such as we have to choose a password for them, which is not ideal, but our communication is always here's your default password, please go change it. But we were finding when we were partnering with schools who had large audiences that were not part of the Yale community, they would be missing all of these email communications, and it was just a lot easier for us to batch create them and then enroll them and then inform them where to go and how to change their password. So that's how it's managed right now.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of on that same note, and we're not as large as you guys, but we've had some events where they wanted to use Canvas for it, and I've been forcing them to get our school email because I wanted everyone in the system to have the school email address, and it sounds like you went another route versus doing that. I thought I was doing it for security reasons, but I'm just kind of wondering why you didn't go that route.
In part, it has to do with the way accounts are created at Yale. They did not want to have large volumes of people with official Yale emails for short periods of time. They didn't want to deal with the provisioning and onboarding and offboarding of those folks. Correct. But what we are doing, because this is not the best way to move forward, we are looking at social SAML integrations so that we can allow people to authenticate into Canvas with their LinkedIn account or with their personal Gmail account. We have a lot of courses that partner globally, and so have students in Mexico and England and all over the world. They're not going to be getting NetID at Yale, but they still need to participate in the course. But this way they don't have to remember separate credentials, which is really the complaint we're getting about the Canvas account. They don't want to have to remember another specialized thing just for one platform. So that's the direction we're moving in probably the next year.
That's good to know. Thank you. I appreciate it.
This is fantastic. I actually have someone back at the office whose his name's Nasmus, and he's created Nas Tools. So it's hilarious. I sent him this. He's like, oh my gosh. But I'm curious. So I would love to eventually be able to extend this out to other members of our community. I'm curious how you're handling authorization. I'm sorry if you touched on this.
Oh, no. So right now, authorization, you need to have a NetID and password to be able to access it. And then to be able to run any of the tools, you have to go into your user account, add the Canvas access token. Otherwise, you can't see anything. Got it. So yeah, you definitely have to have high-level access to be able to even get to the site.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Just going to add on that while the mic is passing around. One of the nice things about that is that it will mirror the access in your sub-account that you have natively. So if we have somebody at a school of management level, they would only be able to run reports at their level. So that would help delegate out the responsibilities as well.
So this is sort of a tangential question. The syllabus tool that you have there, what is the expectation at Yale that everybody should be using an LMS?
We don't force anybody to do anything at Yale. It is strongly encouraged to have a syllabus made available. Whether or not you further use the LMS for any purpose beyond disseminating out your syllabi is entirely up to you. There are other reasons for having a syllabus made available. This may change in the future as we may develop a syllabi hosting solution outside of the LMS, because there's other value to keeping syllabi around for longer periods of time. But for reasons I'm actually not sure of, classes V2 or Sakai and now Canvas are actually the host of the syllabi that get posted in our official course catalog. And so part of that is because they wanted the syllabi behind a CAS wall or a NetID authentication wall, but not the catalog itself. The catalog is public, but the syllabi are private. And so this was a way of matching that duality. For shopping period, the biggest complaints we're hearing from students is there's no syllabus. I can't decide on what course I want to take if there's no syllabus. And so faculty want to shorten shopping period, but they can't shorten shopping period if there's no syllabus and the students can't pick what courses to take. So there's internal pressure, but no requirement.
So they would have to post a syllabus and publish the course?
Yes. For the link to appear in the online course catalog, it needs to be published, and in the syllabus tool, in the sort of text editor at the top, you have to edit that portion.
So can I ask just a quick follow-up? Who owns the syllabus at Yale? Does the institution own the syllabus, or do the faculty own the syllabus?
As with all content at Yale, it's dual-owned with the faculty and the institution.
Ah, okay.
Just a follow-up, it sounds like when users use this tool and they run a report, it's using their API key, is that correct? Mm-hmm. So that's what you're saying. How do you manage that process? I imagine that some of your users are not necessarily super savvy at going and copying that, or even just the scale of, I don't know how many users you have, but that's a lot of copying and pasting and generating. And
So each user, their Subaccount administrators, would need to go into their settings. So I have instructions on how to do this, and grab a Canvas access token, and copy and paste that into your settings in Alinas Tools, save it, and then Alinas Tools handles the authentication, all the handshakes and all that. So they don't have to worry about any of that part.
so you do leave it to users though, and you just have it well documented how
Yep,
to do
exactly.
that? Okay, great.
And right now, the only people using this tool are root level admins. We haven't actually started the process of disseminating this down to our sub-account admins.
I have a question on your LTI tools reporting. I'm over here.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, I couldn't see you because of the light, yeah.
We have several tools installed at the account level, and when you run the native LTI reporting tools, depending on how those tools are installed, which is just dictated by the manufacturer, they report very differently. Like turning plagiarism tool, in the LTI reports, it says, yes, you have that once. A lot of the publishers, when you run the reports, it shows them in every course, even when they're not in use. So is there something in the API that's allowing you to get better LTI tools reporting so you can actually tell which course has this publisher versus the publisher showing up for all of them?
So in the API tool, when you run that, so each they're called external tools in the API. Each of them have their own ID number. And then, so when you run it, the JSON has, one of the pairs is I think visible, and then it's either true or false. And that's the one I use to be able to tell whether it's visible or not. And so far, that's been true. It's been, all of our testing has said, yeah, we haven't run into that issue where it says it's true and then it's not there.
Do you have a lot of publishers installed? Because the publishers just drive me crazy. They all look like they're visible in the course.
Interesting. Yeah, no, the way that we're running it, maybe it's a different way we're running it. I could show you later if you want to come up exactly how we do it, but.
Yeah, I'll email you. Thank you.
When you say publishers, do you mean publishing houses, like for textbooks, or for, how are you defining
I
publisher?
mean publishers like Pearson and McGraw-Hill and.
Yeah, we have not installed a lot of publishing houses like that, so a lot of our external apps are not in that bucket, so that could be why our reports are a little cleaner.
And you don't run into the problem with some tools that only show up once for the account, like turning plagiarism detection? I can't think off the top of my head what other problematic ones we have. But I mean, we know turning is used in a lot of courses, but in the LTI report, it shows up once.
Interesting. No, we haven't run into that. So definitely email me, and
I'll be in touch.
I'm interested to see, what you're getting.
I just wondered, is there a reason that you didn't use the OAuth handshake for getting your API keys instead of having them copy and paste it? I'm in a very similar situation, creating a tool set like this, and I just wanted to know.
Oh, cool. Not really. That was the first thing I did, and I was like, I'm just going to make this as easy as possible for myself. In the future, I might, but yeah,
Right.
laziness, I guess.
Complicated. So.
I was just curious if your sub-account structure limits the type of reports you can run. I noticed that you've got it arranged by department. We're kind of deciding between arranging by department or by program. Does that affect the reports you can run, or is there a way to get both?
So each sub-account is under like a parent sub-account, I guess I could say. So for example, Yale College has like biology and chemistry and physics under that. So if you can run it either at Yale College and get all of the sub-accounts underneath it, or you can just run biology and just get all the biology ones. Is that kind of what you were asking? Can you look by program? We don't.
So we're pulling all of our sub-account structure from Banner, our student information system, directly, and they do not organize courses by program. So right now it is by school, sort of university, school, department, subject, and then courses. So we are looking at ways of figuring out how some of our professional schools would like to then further organize those courses into programs. Are there other ways that we can do that? I think Alinas Tools would be a great way to leverage that, for us to be able to bundle a certain set of courses that cross multiple departments, to say that this program and how is this program doing. The only schools that we have that have been more successful in this area are schools that are not yet being published from our Banner instance or integration, because they're manually creating their courses and organizing them by program. So we're recognizing this need, but right now, certainly Yale College isn't organized that way. But the professional schools, I think there may be more leeway because of the way their courses are entered in our Banner environment.
Hi, so you mentioned that you ask the users to generate their own tokens and keys. Do you instruct the users to set an expiration date and then regenerate them, or do you just kind of trust the users to keep them safe and allow them to keep them indefinitely?
That's a good point. So far, it's only been our really, really close internal staff who have entered their access keys in there, but that's a very good point for sub-account admins. Yeah, as for the security audit.
We already do a quarterly security audit of anyone who has elevated access, and so that should catch anybody who shouldn't have it for more than 3 months. And so if they had set their expiration token to never, but are no longer in the sub-account admin role 3 months later, their token would be irrelevant at that point. So I think we're hopefully covering it in that way as well.
You're making a ton of API calls.
Yes.
Are you hosted by Instructure?
No. We're hosted on Heroku.
Well, I mean, Instructure hosts your
the data.
Hosts the Canvas.
We don't have Canvas data yet. This is something that these are all live calls that we're doing to our production environment, and then storing the reports separately, but not all the data that was being queried at the time.
So have you run into any problems with your the number of calls exceeding like the allowable limit? Because at some point we had a rumor that there was a limit, but I've never encountered it myself except to say that things take too long.
Yeah, so some of them take a really long time. I don't know if there's a limit. Maybe they throttle the amount you can. Maybe people know about the limit. Okay, good. The problems I've run into have been more on the Heroku side, being able to handle the scripts, but on the Canvas side, we haven't like hit a limit ourselves. But oh, good, thank you.
Can you wait for the mic?
Yeah, hold on for the mic.
Thank you.
That was no rumor. There is, in fact, a very solid throttling. And we were hit very badly by that at Ohio State. So we have adopted really Herculean measures to avoid that in the future. But one advantage that with what you are doing and why you would probably not see it is you're making every user paste their own access token in. If you don't do that, because the throttling is based on the access tokens,
I see.
and the way we are doing it at
So I
high
accidentally
school, yeah.
figured out a way to get around it.
So the way we are doing it at OSU is because we manage all these permissions and everything
I see,
centrally.
one,
We
yeah.
have one or now many access tokens that we round robin through. So
That hole will be fixed next week, probably.
yeah, we have been telling people that for about a year now.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we got over there.
Two more, yeah.
You said you bulk create the users. How do you handle managing those after?
Currently, right now, we're not actually doing anything about them.
So they just remain open?
They just remain for now.
Okay.
We will likely consider some sort of cleanup process in the future, but right now, we're not doing anything. And it's probably because we are still in our infant stage of moving over that we haven't thought about exactly how to manage that just yet. But it's coming. We need to clear it out.
I think one of the challenges I have with deleting users is that it then degrades the course itself that they were enrolled in. And because we're not deleting users, we're not deleting courses, you start taking all the people out, then the instructors who may still be at Yale will now see a course with no people in them. And so we're trying to figure that out. But we are actively concluding courses, and so maybe the value of them being enrolled will diminish over time.
Can a person who's shopping in a course who has that role, can they do things besides see the syllabus? And are there any restrictions on what they can see, and are there any FERPA issues? And what if they don't drop or add by the deadline?
So the first part of that, the shopper role is basically the student role. They have full access to the course. So once they officially shop, they have to register for it, and then they're added as a shopper. And they will remain a shopper until they seal their worksheet, which is what we call basically completing your registrations. And then we have kind of a soft end date for shopping period, which is when we tell everybody, and then we usually give a little bit of a buffer, and then we purge everyone who's still a shopper role so that they can't continue to use the course after that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say shopping period is a little weird because it's like 2 weeks at the beginning of the semester where students are actually attending courses, expected to do the readings, expected to do all the homework. So they do need full access to the course, even if they're not going to end up taking it. But they do have 2 weeks to decide if they want to take it. Yeah. Yeah, it's great for students. Faculty are not so happy about it. And the registrars don't know how large of a room to book for sometimes. So it's, but for students, it's amazing. Anyone else?
Oh, one more hand in the back, I saw.
Oh, wait, hold on. We can't hear you unless you're on the mic.
Hi, sorry. When you find faculty who haven't published their course or syllabus, do you automate those notifications, or do you just send them out one at a time to target the right people?
So this is something that we're probably going to be doing for the first time in real earnest this fall. This is not something the registrar has felt very comfortable doing until now. We have some serious buy-in from our provost and up that says this is really a requirement. So what we're probably going to be doing is automating these reports perhaps daily during our first shopping period this fall and sending them to the department registrars for those department deans or chairs to decide what to do with. We will not be sending communication to faculty saying where's your syllabus. So it will be coming from the chair or the dean. Maybe all they're going to want to do is look at the reports just to understand compliance so that they can then speak at the next staff meeting to say and explain why it's important. But we're really letting it disseminate down to the different departments to take action as they wish.
And using those department heads and the...
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, very much.